Times are changing and a major transformation is about to start in Africa. Are you ready for it? Announcing the launch of Nigeria's Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone programme, a private sector-led and government-enabled programme mobilising investments in food production and processing in special zones. For stakeholders across the agro-processing value chain, this is a game-changing programme. $538 million has already been mobilised for Phase 1 of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones, with funding from the federal government, state governments and other partners. It's time to accelerate transformative private sector investments. It's time to raise public awareness about the impact of SAPZ's job creation, transforming
Excellencies,
into zones of prosperity.
distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please locate your seats and be seated. Members of the protocol team, kindly ensure that everyone is seated. Thank you. Oshibajo. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Don't shoot the messenger this morning. We're only operating by the signals that we do receive, so kindly bear with us. We'll make the necessary announcements again in a few moments. Thank you very much. Yes.
They don't mind all that funding. I mean, I imagine the kids are grown, so it's really visit. So she will feel your absence. Other guys to go down for pictures. Still very warm. That is not reaching this stage. There's only one problem around Victoria, but it is very important to the state. And we push past the rules to the end. Because they say you only come with products, so he has to do.
Processing Zone Programme, a private sector-led and government-enabled programme mobilising investments in food production and processing in special zones for stakeholders across the agro-process.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, we are making adjustments as we go along. The Vice President of the Federal Republic has arrived. He is downstairs, and If you are a minister who's seated, a state governor, deputy governor, or representative of a governor, please make your way to the ground floor for the photo session with the Vice President, as well as presidents and representatives of partner institutions and permanent secretaries. In addition, the National Project Coordination Office for the SAPZs. Thank you very much. area.
These people are saying the king should be unveiled. That's what they're saying.
No, somebody who hold this said this Minister of Finance and Administration, Minister of 2 ministers of all
Is he coming? Yes, and then he will then.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Gentlemen and ladies of the media, please clear the aisles, please. Please clear the aisles. Professor Yemi Oshibajo.
To honor, uphold, and embrace our shared history, values, and beliefs, can I please ask you to remain standing for the Nigerian national anthem?
You may be seated. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Honorable Minister of Communication, Honorable Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, our venue host, Honorable Minister of State for the FCT, Your Excellencies, Executive Governors, Honorable Commissioners, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, members of the Diplomatic Corps, and heads of international organizations, SAPZ partners and investors, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this much anticipated launch of Nigeria's strategic and innovative Special Agro-Processing Zone Program, otherwise known as SAPZ. I'm Victor Oladokun, and I'll be your moderator today. I'm joined by my very good friend and colleague, Kadaria Ahmed, who I believe needs no introduction. Over to you, Kadaria.
Many thanks, Victor. It's a pleasure joining you on this platform, and in particular for the official launch of a program that has tremendous potential for transforming agriculture and agro-processing and for ensuring Nigeria's food production and security.
One of the most beautiful things about Nigeria, and there indeed are so many things that are beautiful about our nation, which we must celebrate, but one of those that is evidently beautiful is our abundant natural resources and agricultural endowments that God, in His providence, has blessed us with as a nation. Today, indeed, marks the beginning of a strategic movement that brings together several key domestic and global players to help boost investments in Nigeria's food production and processing business, a business that is geared to be a multi-billion-dollar enterprise in the years to come. To get the proverbial ball rolling, kindly turn your attention to the screen for the opening SAPZ video.
Times are changing and a major transformation is about to start in Africa. Are you ready for it? Announcing the launch of Nigeria's Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone program, a private sector-led and government-enabled program mobilizing investments in food production and processing in special zones. For stakeholders across the agro-processing value chain, this is a game-changing program. $538 million has already been mobilized for Phase 1 of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones, with funding from the federal government, state governments, and other partners. It's time to accelerate transformative private sector investments. It's time to raise public awareness about the impact of SAPZ's job creation, transforming rural areas into zones of prosperity, curbing rural-urban migration, and achieving food security and sufficiency. It's time to make SAPZ's a viable wealth-creating program. One journey, one laser focus, one commitment, one goal. Transforming Nigeria's agro-processing landscape. Agriculture is business. Visit our website to learn more. Together, let's make it happen.
This morning, we're going to have an opportunity to hear from key leaders from across Nigeria's public and private sector and from a few SAPZ partners. Now, due to prior commitments, His Excellency the Vice President will not be able to stay throughout the whole duration of the launch. I therefore kindly request that each of our distinguished speakers keep their comments and interventions to the allotted time. A countdown clock will provide a time check. It's right across there. And once exceeded, either my co-moderator or I will then approach the podium as a signal for a wrap-up to ensure we stay within the time limits. I'd like to now call on one of our core SAPZ partner ministers, to provide a short 3-minute remark. It is therefore an honor to invite the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, a champion of the SAPZ program, Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar, to provide a brief 3-minute opening remark. Honorable Minister, please.
Your Excellency, the Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Oshinbajo, GCON, SAN, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, and other collaborating ministers, the President of the African Development Bank, the President of Islamic Development Bank, and the President of IFAD, International Fund for Agricultural Development, Your Excellency, State Governors, Permanent Secretaries, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is with great sense of duty and immense pleasure to welcome Your Excellencies, top government functionaries, development partners, and our strategic stakeholders to this epoch event of the presidential launch of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone program, holding today, the 24th of October, here in Abuja. Your Excellency, Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari, who is being ably represented by His Excellency, the Vice President, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is important to inform you that the recently approved Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone by the Federal Executive Council under this current administration is a major cross-cutting value chain investment program driven by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, FMAD, in a strategic alliance with the National Agricultural Technology and Innovation Policy. Mr. President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone, SAPZ program, by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture that will be driven, along with other cooperating MDAs, will be a game changer, and also being supported by the African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, and the International Fund for Agriculture Development will definitely change the face of agriculture in Nigeria and also industrialization. The SAPZ program is a dedicated agro-processing area within major food production clusters with desirable ultra-modern infrastructure to attract private sector investment into the agro-processing of locally produced crops, livestock, fisheries, and other related agri-business activities. The program is designed to commence in 8 locations of Kano, Imo, Kaduna, Cross River, Kwara, Oyo, and Ogun, and the Federal Capital Territory. That is in the first phase. Also, the preparation to upscale to 18 states in the second phase is in the pipeline. This and many more will strengthen the Nigeria agribusiness ecosystem to respond more effectively and efficiently to the challenges of our time. Furthermore, the SAPZ is the flagship for Nigeria's agriculture, which entails the development and operation of agro-industrial processing clusters in areas of high food production across the country to engender the competitiveness in agro-industrial production and processing that is critical to further unlock the potentials of Nigeria's agriculture, to improve food and nutrition security, to reduce post-harvest losses, create jobs for women and youth, as well as create wealth for the rural community. The SAPZ is made up of 3 building blocks, namely the Agricultural Transformation Center, ATC, which is a community-based rural institution within the host community, supported by quality production drivers for the production of farm produce as feedstock to the aggregation centers, AC, for primary storage, and the agro-industrial hub, AIH, equipped with desirable infrastructure to create modern agricultural processing environment where secondary value addition of those farm commodities will take place. Let me also inform you all that the primary goal of the SAPZ is to transform the Nigerian agricultural sector into a more competitive advantage by eliminating the supply side constraint, such as lack of general infrastructure like roads, power, water, telecommunication, inadequate raw material supply, poor business structure, and weak policy environment. This will elevate the Nigeria's agribusiness sector into a new height of excellence for local, regional, and global markets. My dear listeners, this presidential launch of SAPZ signals a new dawn in agricultural investment activities in Nigeria. My ministry, as an institution of government, will mobilize more support for the implementation of SAPZ program in the development of integrated value chain clusters and corridors, leveraging on smart logistics to connect rural production and processing zones in the urban centers. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it may interest you to know that SAPZ are expected to reduce operational costs for processors by up to 28%. The successful implementation of the 8 SAPZ states is expected to create up to 550,000 additional new jobs in production, processing, and other associated activities, and contribute up to about 10 million USD to Nigeria's economy annually through additional cultivation of up to about 950,000 hectares of land. This will add to agricultural output of up to 12.7 million tons per annum, as well as value-added processing of up to 6.2 million metric tons per annum. At this juncture, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my ministry's doors are open for more collaboration and partnership with international development bodies, state government, as well as private sector through efficient and effective strategic data-driven innovations capable of changing the narratives for better innovative financing models that guarantee fiscal prudence. Finally, my dear listeners, SAPZ is here to stay. All hands must be on deck to ensure its success and sustainability for years to come. Thank you and God bless.
Many thanks, Dr. Mahmoud Abubakar, for your remarks and for articulating very clearly the catalytic role of the special agro-industrial processing zones. Well, as food for thought, and just to get a glimpse of what the future holds for Nigeria, let's keep in mind that in 2019, Nigeria exported $34 billion worth of crude oil. In that same period, Vietnam, a nation with a population half that of Nigeria's size, exported $364 billion worth of manufactured goods, of which 5 commodities alone accounted for exports worth $40 billion. As we all know, agriculture indeed is the future wealth, present and future wealth of Nigeria. We have the abundant water resources, the labor, and some of the most arable land on the continent. The future indeed is bright. So once again, Honorable Minister, thank you very much for those comments. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, creating an enabling environment for the successful takeoff of a special agro-processing industrial zone is key to its success. The active support of the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning has been critical to this launch today. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, kindly give a very warm welcome to Dr. Mrs. Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed as she prepares to give her short opening remarks.
Your Excellency, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshumbanjo, GCON, Your Excellencies, Executive Governors, Honorable Ministers, President of Islamic Development Bank, President of African Development Bank, Vice President of IFAD, members of the Diplomatic Corps, senior government officials, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great pleasure and an honor for me to be here to welcome you in the launch of the Special Agricultural Processing Zone program. We are here today to witness yet another significant occasion in this important gathering. It was the desire of His Excellency, Mr. President, to resuscitate the vigor of having agro-processing zones in Nigeria to promote the agricultural value chain, to empower youth and to revitalize non-functional investments in agriculture, and most importantly, to curtail the level of importation of products that could be locally produced in the country. The first phase of the SAPZ program is to kickstart with a credit facility of $410.49 million already secured from our co-financing development partners, namely the African Development Bank with $210 million, the Islamic Development Bank with $150.2 million, and the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, with $49.97 million. The credit facility from the 3 co-financiers will be on lent to the states by the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning under a subsidiary loan agreement under the same terms and conditions as obtained from the financiers. Subsequently, this program will also be rolled out to other states in phase 2. The program is of enormous benefit to the people of Nigeria with huge potential and opportunity to promote Nigerian agriculture and agribusiness through the provision of required infrastructure to enhance productivity and the efficiency of value addition with the participation of the private sector, as well as secured to be commercially viable. This will, in the long run, will create job opportunities and alleviate poverty, enhance food security, and promote agribusiness. As you are aware, the federal government of Nigeria, alongside the states, is committed to strategically improving the national economic growth. The diversification of our country is focused on the agricultural sector. At this juncture, I will also want to remind the meeting that the implementation of the SAPZ has become even more essential now, considering the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic as well as the Russia-Ukraine crisis. And this is an effect that has an impact across the world, including Nigeria. It is also critical in actualizing the program in Nigeria, as this depends largely on our resilience as stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just again commend the development partners for committing resources to fund the first phase of the program, and also pay special gratitude to the President of the Islamic Development Bank, Dr. Muhammad Suleiman Al-Jasser, and the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, and Madam Catherine Megan, the Vice President of the IPAD, for being here today in this launch. Your Excellency, the Vice President, Presidents of the Development Partner Institutions, and other stakeholders, it is my pleasure again to welcome you to the launch of the SAPZ. Thank you very much for your kind attention. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Another round of applause, please, for the Honorable Minister, thanking her for her remarks and for the work that Ministry has done, which is made today possible. I'd like to also acknowledge the presence of the Minister of Water Resources, Alhaji Suleiman Adamu. I'm sorry that we missed him out when we were introducing ministers earlier today. Also present here is the representative of the Senate President, Senator Yahya Abdullahi, who is the Chairman, Senate Committee on Agriculture, and also other senators here seated. Now, agriculture and agro-processing are dynamic sectors with several complementary systems. Up next to provide his opening remarks is Otumba Niyi Adebayo, the Minister of Industry and Trade and Investment, whose portfolio includes several moving parts that help make the SAPZ a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, please a warm round of applause for Otumba Niyi Adebayo.
Your Excellency, the Vice President, all Excellencies here present, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here today at the presidential launch of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone program. This program has been a long time in the making, and I'm happy to have been part of the journey so far. Agriculture is truly the backbone of our economy, and its modernization is critical to Nigeria's economic development. The Nigeria Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones program is a great example of public and private sector-led organizations coming together to make impactful change. I would like to thank all the private sector partners for helping to make this project a reality. The African Development Bank, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, the Islamic Development Bank, and the Green Climate Fund. I thank you all for your dedication to Nigeria's success. Your investments will go a long way in improving Nigeria's agricultural sector, and more importantly, the lives of men and women in some of Nigeria's most rural areas. The federal government is committed to moving Nigeria from a nation that still needs to import food items to one that is completely food secure and is a strong exporter of value-added agro-based products. We are working to ensure that in the next few years, made in Nigeria products, many of which will come out of these SAPZs, will be on supermarket shelves around the world. It is currently a challenging time for global supply chains. US shippers are under a lot of strain caused by reduced input from China, and Europe continues to face supply chain challenges caused by the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The world is only just gradually recovering from the economic challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has highlighted the importance of having resilient alternatives when traditional supply chains are unable to serve our needs. Current global challenges are expected to continue into 2023 and beyond, but Nigeria is ready to fill a greater amount of global demand. Nigeria is endowed with over 34 million hectares of arable land with 7 different vegetation zones. This means that Nigeria can grow almost any crop. At present, only approximately 40% of our arable land is being utilized. The SAPZ project will increase this dramatically. Nigeria now has a unique opportunity to leverage our strong labor force, strategic location, and production and manufacturing potential to move forward as a key trading partner to the rest of the world. Nigeria has the ability to help global markets mitigate against both current and potential future supply chain challenges, and the SAPZ program is a major key to this. I'd like to once again thank all the private sector partners, and also most especially His Excellency the Vice President, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, the Honorable Minister of Finance, all the state governors, and all those here present who have joined hands to create an enabling environment for the success of this project. May God bless our great nation. Thank you very much.
Kindly give a warm round of applause to the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Otumba Ni Adebayo. Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the best partnerships in the world are based on shared goals, strong commitments, and consistent sustainable policies and strategies. But they're also based on alliances. As the saying goes, as individuals and as institutions, we're simply a drop in the water. But together, we are an ocean. And that is precisely what makes this leveraged partnership strategically important. At this point, I'd like to welcome to the podium the President of the Islamic Development Bank, Dr. Mohammed Al-Jasir, to provide brief remarks.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wa bihi nasta'een. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Honorable Islamic Development Bank Governor, Federal Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, the Honorable Ministers, Your Excellencies, State Governors, Your Excellency, Vice President of the IFAD, Your Excellency, the African Development Bank Director General, Nigeria Country Department, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, on behalf of the Islamic Development Bank Group staff, I extend my heartfelt condolences to the people and government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for the loss of lives caused by the recent flooding that inundated parts of the country. The Islamic Development Bank Group stands with its member country, Nigeria, and will do its utmost to contribute to reversing the impact of this unexpected and tragic disaster. May Allah, the Almighty, bless the souls of the victims. I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for inviting me to participate in the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones Program, SAPZ, launch ceremony. I would also like to thank the African Development Bank for taking the lead in designing this program, which is important not only for Nigeria, but also for other Islamic Development Bank Group member countries. Special thanks also go to IFAD and the other partners in the SAPZ program for joining this strong partnership. Finally, I appreciate the program's beneficiary states, particularly Kano, Kawara, and the Federal Capital Territory. Ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria is a major shareholder of the Islamic Development Bank. Since the first Islamic Development Bank operation was approved in March 1990, the Islamic Development Bank Group commitments in project financing and other development activities in Nigeria have exceeded $1.8 billion, covering every geographical zone of the country. Our involvement in Nigeria has focused on various sectors, especially agriculture, the backbone of most of the Islamic Development Bank member countries' economies. Currently, the bank has a rich pipeline of projects for Nigeria. Consultation is ongoing with the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning for undertaking the Islamic Development Bank member country partnership strategy for Nigeria for 2023. Let me emphasize the importance of agriculture for the Nigerian economy. This sector is the second largest contributor to GDP after oil. 81 million, that's 88% of the country's 92.4 million hectares are arable lands. To take full advantage of these opportunities, the government of Nigeria has initiated many programs, with SAPZ being the most innovative. The Islamic Development Bank is proud to be part of this initiative to support Nigeria's inclusive and sustainable agro-industrial development. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 has already impacted hundreds of millions of people, including up to 300 million in sub-Saharan Africa alone. In addition, the pandemic, which has caused economic lockdowns, took a toll on Nigerian and farmers, further exacerbating an already fragile system. Most recently, the conflict in Eastern Europe has brought about a significant negative impact on a global scale, destabilizing food security and disrupting international trade and financial markets, among other things. With the disruption of supplies arising from the war, Africa now faces a shortage of at least 30 million metric tons of food imports from Russia and Ukraine, especially wheat, maize, and soybeans. Therefore, urgent actions are needed to prevent a food crisis in Africa. The Islamic Development Bank is concerned by the impact of the crisis on its member states, including Nigeria. To help member countries cope with this new challenge, the bank approved in last July, a food security response program worth $10.5 billion. Nigeria will be among the first countries to benefit from this program. The Islamic Development Bank Regional Hub of Abuja team is working on the second phase of the National Program for Food Security project to be approved before the end of this year for an estimated $30 million. There is also a discussion with the authorities concerned on a $200 million food security program to deliver short, medium, and long-term responses. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to reiterate the Islamic Development Bank Group's firm commitment to supporting Nigeria in achieving its developmental aspirations and implementing its future national development plans. At the same time, I look forward to more collaboration with the African Development Bank, IFAD, and other development partners in designing and implementing projects that ensure timely and effective global response to food security and other social challenges facing Islamic Development Bank member countries. I take this opportunity to commend the effective leadership of the African Development Bank Director General for Nigeria Country Department, who is instrumental in strengthening our partnership with the African Development Bank in the country. Finally, I am confident that Nigeria will efficiently implement this ambitious program under the capable leadership of the ministries and states concerned. SAPZ will boost food production, reduce food price inflation, and transform the agriculture sector while assuring food security and creating jobs. I pray that Allah, the Almighty, blesses our endeavors toward realizing further progress and prosperity for the people of our member countries. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I am sure many people were saying Ameen, Ameen, and Ameen. Another round of applause, please, for Dr. Mohammed Al-Jasser, President of the Islamic Development Bank. I'm sure you all agree this is a very significant partnership. Now, we did say to you that we are short of time, and so we're sort of abridging our program. And to that end, I'd like to invite His Excellency, Ben Ayadele, Governor of Cross River State, to speak on behalf of all the governors of the initial states that are taking part in this project. Excellency, please.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, all the honorable ministers here present, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the 6 participating states and the FCT, We want to thank the federal government of Nigeria and all the donor partners that have come together to put over $400 million to support agriculture in Nigeria. We are happy to be part of those phase one states. We are happy that indeed you've given us an opportunity to demonstrate indeed that Nigeria can work again. When President Muhammadu Buhari was sworn into office, he decided to create a roadmap of Nigeria without oil. Today is a densification and a footfall of that his philosophy, that Nigeria can actually have an economy independent of the oil and gas industry. Let me say that it is possible for us to pass the vision to the incoming administration. We can indeed pass the project. We can indeed pass everything therefrom. You can actually pass the finance, but you can't pass the passion. The passion to actually put agriculture at the forefront of this country has become critical. And so I call on all the participating partners, particularly the Minister of Agriculture, Finance and Industry, to please create the necessary impetus that can actually bring the actual footfall of these industries to have its products in the markets. It is traditional for Nigerians to start very big. And over time, apathy sets in and things begin to atrophy. I like to say that this project will be a classical departure from the tradition we know. Cross River State, speaking on behalf of all of us, using Cross River just as a window, we have had extensive investments in the agro value chain. But I can assure you that I am a man who's got the fields and the feeling on the ground. We've set up factories like the garment factory deriving its raw material from cotton. We have pharmaceutical factories. We have feed mills. We have noodle factory deriving its raw material from rice. We have the rice mill, the cocoa processing, cassava processing to sorbitol. We have maize flour. We have rice flour. We have all sorts of factories, 20 agro-industrial factories already set. But the biggest challenge is raw material. For example, the feed mill, you need a lot of soybean and maize. Absence of soybean and maize, massive amount of rice paddy. You have the Ogoja rice mill lying prostrate, 240 tons per day, no meal. We have a concessionaire with 7 billion ready to buy paddy, no paddy to buy. Therefore, this project is real. Again, somebody had mentioned with the challenge we have occasioned by the war between Russia and Ukraine, exacerbated by also the flooding system we have in Nigeria. Obviously, the harbinger in front of us is that we have a cataclysmic stake befalling us if we don't address the issue of agriculture and food sufficiency and food supply. The most critical insecurity is not insecurity from bandits, but insecurity of hunger, because that brings out the animalism in every human being. Because once you're stretched to the limit, your humanity and decency loses value, because the principle of existentialism will focus on you surviving first. And that means one predating on the other. Where human beings become cannibalistic to the extent that they predate on any means of survival, it means you already have a banana republic. I think it's very strong for us to drive this message, that the ministers who are officiating this process must see the importance of focusing on this project and bringing it in such a way that it comes as the first step of action. We, as governors who are on their second term on our way out, we fear with great concerns that as we watch the exit of this government as we eclipse away, we fear that as you pass this into the next government, you will see a redirection and a refocus on small quick wins that will make them win the second term election, instead of focusing on the main project, which is providing food sufficiency for this country. Nigeria is the leading country in Africa, and if Nigeria is hungry, Africa is hungry. The only way we can stop African hunger is to ensure that every single dollar, every single coin coming out of this project has its manifestation in practical results. The empiricism of that will lead to the food sufficiency that we all seek. Shamefully, Cross River State government brought in a company, a Dutch company, Henneman, into Nigeria to do land clearing and land preparation. For 6 months, all their materials are stocked in Nigerian ports. They're in court today because they can't simply clear land clearing equipments. Unfortunately, as a state, we're helpless because the customs insist on getting their funds. And the various taxes and charges that keep growing. And when I sit back and look at the cost of clearing, and I just sympathize with us as we build these factories, where the raw materials, the logistics support, the off-take mechanism, where is the money to buy off and serve as the off-takers? These are the problems confronting us as the participating states, and we do hope that this team of ministers that we have that we trust can join hands with us to quickly deliver value that the president can boast in his exit period, May 29 next year, to say, I have brought this factory, this industry to bear. And the ministers will be proud that they join hands with us to bring that to reality. I thank you so much, and I thank the federal government of Nigeria, Islamic Bank, African Development Bank, and all the participating partners that have made this fund available. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Governor Ben Ayade. We greatly appreciate your passion that you bring not just to governance, but also to agriculture. Thank you for championing the cause of agro-industrial processing in our nation. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, kindly give a warm round of applause to Governor Ayade. As mentioned earlier, the SAPZs are an ecosystem. They are a partnership. A critical part of that ecosystem and partnership is the International Fund for Agriculture, IFAD. And IFAD is ably represented today by Catherine Megan, and she will be coming up next to give brief remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly give Catherine Megan a very, very warm round of applause. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, honorable ministers, Your Excellencies, distinguished governors, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to be here today among you all representing the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, based in Rome. Nigeria has been a long-standing partner with IFAD. It is one of our most important member states in Africa and in the region, and I would like to begin by expressing my deep compassion and solidarity with each of you and the people of Nigeria in the wake of the recent devastating floods. These floods have wiped out livelihoods and they've wiped out lives. These floods show the increasing importance in today's complex world of finding solutions for investment in climate adaptation so that we can protect against such devastating impacts of potential future floods or future extreme weather events. IFAD has been a strong partner with Nigeria for our entire history since our founding in 1977. With the SAPZ project, we will have reached $700 million of direct investment with Nigeria, and with co-financing $1.2 billion with our partners in Nigeria. We are focused on building rural resilience, building rural communities where people can grow, produce small-scale agriculture, and improve those outputs along the value chain to have rural, sustainable, vibrant communities. We know that food is not just the future, food is the present. Investing in food is investing in our present and in our future. And I think that the current global food crisis has made this apparent to every person in every nation today. IFAD has, in response to the recent floods and in recognition of our long-standing partnership with the government of Nigeria, scaled up our support to dry season farming to help the people of Nigeria produce additional food in the historic dry season where less food has been traditionally produced. I am also delighted to announce today a special new significant contribution by IFAD for Nigeria in response to the flooding. This is a grant funding of almost $5 million to be invested in climate resilient agriculture. This grant funding will help us to work with partners in the VCDP program to climate-proof the projects so that we're better protected from future floods as well as future droughts. This can include work such as planting trees to decrease erosion and building small dams, as well as irrigation channels to cabin flood water, as well as retain that water for small irrigation during the dry season. With these two major programs of dry season farming and this climate resilient grant, we stand with our long-standing partners in Nigeria to combat the effects of the floods and build further rural resilience. It's an honor to be here today for the launch of the SAPZ project. I think that the presence of His Excellency, the Vice President, in our midst shows the importance of this project to all of us. IFAD is honored to be a partner with the Republic of Nigeria, as well as the African Development Bank and Islamic Development Bank in this program. We are proud that our investment will contribute directly to the incomes of 100,000 small farmers and food producers in Nigeria. We believe that there is importance to have a strong focus on youth and women smallholder farmers and producers in particular, while also bringing in the private sector and others in the 4P model, which we use, the public-private producer partnerships, to make sure that these investments are sustainable and long-standing. The SAPZ project is a game changer. We believe that investment in food and food production is imperative for today, and investment in food and food production is imperative for our future. We are honored to work with the Republic of Nigeria to support this game-changing project. I wish everyone involved in the project all success. May God bless you. May God bless the people of Nigeria. Thank you.
In addition to the role that IFAD is playing for the SAPZs, Catherine Megan has just announced $5 million fund for climate resilience, agriculture, and if we look at how many people have died from flooding, I'm sure you agree she deserves another round of applause. Thank you so much for that. It will make such a difference. Now, almost 10 years ago, Nigeria's then Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, helped conceive the vision of the special agro-processing industrial zones in Nigeria. Later on, as president of the Africa Development Bank Group, he would go on to make Feeding Africa one of the 5 strategic priorities of the bank. And in the process, he is helping reshape Africa's agro-industrial landscape. He has vigorously championed the takeoff of the Nigerian SAPZs. Regrettably, Dr. Adesina is unable to be with us physically this morning. However, he has provided brief opening remarks digitally. Kindly turn your attention to the screen for brief comments by Africa's optimist-in-chief, Akinwumi Adesina.
Your Excellency, Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, represented by His Excellency, my dear brother, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellencies, Executive Governors, Honorable Minister of Finance, Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors and heads of international organizations, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I wish to congratulate the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the launch of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones, SAPZs, today. I speak to you today wearing 3 hats. As President of the African Development Bank Group, as a former Minister of Agriculture of Nigeria, and as a World Food Prize winner, widely known as the Nobel Prize for Agriculture. My heart is with Nigeria as it goes through a very serious flood that is devastating the country. I know this very well. I had to deal with the worst floods in Nigeria when I was Minister of Agriculture. We responded very fast, launched the nation's first dry season farming program, and produced so much food in the dry season. We turned the flood into a new opportunity, and Nigeria avoided a food crisis. Floods may wash away some land and harvests, but we must not let the hopes of farmers be washed away. Agriculture is critical for the survival of any nation. The most important role of any nation is to feed its people. That's because food is a fundamental human right. Africa faces huge challenges in meeting its food needs, with 283 million people that go hungry annually. Yet, Africa has massive agricultural potential. With 65% of the uncultivated arable land left to feed over 9 billion people in the world by 2050 being in Africa, what Africa does with agriculture will determine the future of food in the world. The story is no different in Nigeria. Despite several positive efforts that have been made to improve the agricultural sector, food is now beyond the reach of many. According to the Global Hunger Index 2022, released just a week ago, Nigeria ranks 103rd among 121 countries facing hunger crisis in the world. Hunger in Nigeria cannot be justified. Nigeria has the land, with 34 million hectares of arable land with rich and diverse agroecology. It has the water. It has the labor, and it's pretty cheap. It has great sunshine. Nigeria must achieve zero hunger. There is no reason for anyone to go hungry in Nigeria. As the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said recently, if we do not feed people, we feed conflict. To help turn this situation around for African countries, I prioritized agriculture when I was first elected president of the African Development Bank in 2015. Since then, the African Development Bank has committed $25 billion to investments in agriculture. In the past 6 years, the African Development Bank's financing for agriculture has provided over 76 million farmers with improved agricultural technologies for food security. Through its Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, which we call TAAT or TAT, the African Development Bank has also provided 12 million farmers with improved climate-smart agricultural technologies within 3 years. In Ethiopia, TAT provided heat-tolerant wheat varieties to farmers. The cultivated area under the heat-tolerant wheat varieties expanded from just 5,000 hectares in 2018 to 645,000 hectares in 2022. Just think of that. This year, Ethiopia became self-sufficient in wheat in just 3 years. Next year, Ethiopia will become a net exporter of wheat to Kenya and Djibouti. The bank's support to Sudan has also helped it to reduce its wheat import by 50% within 2 years. The African Development Bank is also supporting Nigeria through TAT to produce more wheat, rice, and maize. This support will allow Nigeria to cultivate by next year 900,000 hectares of rice, 250,000 hectares of wheat, and 107,000 hectares of maize. If Ethiopia can do it, Nigeria can do it. If Sudan can do it, Nigeria can do it. However, to achieve these results, Nigeria must decisively tackle insecurity, challenges that prevent farmers from growing to their farms. The private sector cannot invest when there is insecurity. Food security needs national security. Your Excellencies, the African Development Bank is strongly supporting Nigeria. We have always done so. When Nigeria faced a massive recession in 2016 and needed support, and no financial institution in the world was there to provide support, the African Development Bank came to Nigeria's rescue with an approval of up to $1 billion in budget support. We are doing a lot for Nigeria. The African Development Bank's portfolio in Nigeria at $4.6 billion shows the high priority that we accord to Nigeria across several sectors. To boost food production in Nigeria, the African Development Bank is already investing $522 million with additional co-financing of $420 million from partners. Your Excellencies, to help Africa prevent a food crisis from the Russian war in Ukraine, the African Development Bank launched a $1.5 billion African Emergency Food Production Facility, which will support 20 million farmers to access climate-resilient agricultural technologies and produce 38 million metric tons of food valued at $12 billion. The African Emergency Food Production Facility provided $134 million to Nigeria, one of the highest levels of support across African countries. I would like to thank the Japanese International Development Agency, JICA, for co-financing this with an additional $110 million. Well, that means we collectively made available $244 million for emergency food production in Nigeria. Your Excellencies, we must act faster to avert a food crisis in Nigeria. It is worrying that these emergency funds approved since July of 2022 for emergency food production have yet to be signed for implementation by Nigeria. Yet, the citizens wait for no one, while the hungry await timely help. There is need for greater action, responsiveness, and delivery. Your Excellencies, to fully unlock the potential of Nigeria's agriculture, more needs to be done to promote and support the agribusiness sector. Transforming agriculture must start with recognizing that agriculture is a business, a wealth-creating sector, not just a way of life. Unlocking wealth in agriculture requires the provision of appropriate technologies to boost productivity, development of agricultural value chains, financial structure to support agricultural value chains, and investments in infrastructure to unlock investments by food and agribusinesses. That is why the African Development Bank has launched the development of Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones, SAPZs. The SAPZs are new economic zones located in rural areas to be fully supported by infrastructure, power, water, roads, digital infrastructure, and logistics that will allow food and agribusiness companies to locate within such zones. This will put them close to farmers in production catchment areas, provide market offtakes for farmers, support processing and value addition, reduce food losses, and allow the emergence of highly competitive food and agricultural value chains. Your Excellencies, the development of the SAPZs is one that I had envisioned when I was the Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria. That's because I knew that Nigeria needed to diversify its economy by turning agriculture into a wealth-creating sector with highly competitive agricultural value chains. 7 years after my being Minister of Agriculture of Nigeria, the dream to establish these SAPZs continued. I continued to push for the establishment of the SAPZs when I was elected President of the African Development Bank in 2015. Today, the African Development Bank is investing over $1 billion in SAPZs in 18 African countries. Your Excellencies, the SAPZs will help to transform the food and agricultural sector. They will attract private agribusinesses to locate in these infrastructure-enabled rural areas. They will create massive amounts of jobs across agricultural value chains. They will also help to reduce rural to urban migration, expand the fiscal space, and enhance the emergence of competitive agricultural value chains. Most importantly, the SAPZs will help to transform rural economies of Nigeria from zones of economic misery to zones of economic prosperity, boosting wealth and livelihoods. Your Excellencies, 7 years was a long wait, but today I am delighted that the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones, SAPZs, have finally become a reality in Nigeria. Congratulations. The African Development Bank is providing $210 million for the development of the SAPZs in Nigeria. We are delighted with our partnership with the Islamic Development Bank, which is co-financing with $150 million, and with the International Fund for Agricultural Development, which is co-financing with $160 million. The SAPZ program in Nigeria is the largest in Africa in scale and scope. The commitment of the Minister of Agriculture is strong. The commitment by the Minister of Finance is strong. And the commitment by the state governors is very strong. The SAPZs in Nigeria are being developed closely with the state governments, and many of them are here today. I was pleased to have hosted several state governors at the African Development Bank headquarters in Abidjan, including executive governors from Ogun State, Kaduna State, Imo State, and Oyo State, and others that joined us later to discuss modalities of implementation. I am delighted that already 19 additional state governments have indicated interests to also establish special agro-industrial processing zones. The African Development Bank will work with all development partners to scale up the SAPZs across Nigeria. Your Excellencies, several private sector firms, domestic and foreign, have already expressed keen interest in locating in these zones. The states will require competent and experienced private sector developers, facility managers, and operators to complete necessary infrastructure and logistics within their respective special agro-industrial processing zones. The involvement of the National Sovereign Investment Authority is designed to boost private sector and investor confidence in what will be a multi-billion-dollar sector in the years just ahead. The Bank of Industry is committed to financing companies investing in the zones, including small and medium-sized enterprises, commercial farmers, aggregators, input suppliers, primary processors, large processors, and agribusinesses. Together with our partners, we will work alongside the state and the federal government to help attract finance, support speedy implementation, and to ensure that Nigeria unlocks its agricultural potential. Your Excellencies, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. The launch today of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones, SAPZs, marks the beginning of a long journey of transformation. The SAPZs will help feed Nigeria. The SAPZs will help transform Nigeria's rural economies. The SAPZs will help to expand fiscal space. The SAPZs will fully unlock Nigeria's agricultural potential. The SAPZs will create millions of jobs. Your Excellencies, let us travel this journey together. Nigerians deserve the results: lower food prices, food security, and wealth for rural areas. Thank you very much.
Dr. Akinwumi, Additional President of the African Development Bank, and a catalyst for the takeoff of Nigeria's SAPZ program, with a timely reminder that the SAPZs are a strategic part of our collective journey to feed Nigeria. Once again, if you could give him a round of applause in absentia, that would be much appreciated. It really is a privilege to introduce our next speaker. He has been front and center of Nigeria's efforts to revitalize and transform Nigeria's agriculture and food processing sector via several creative initiatives. He has also been a powerful and influential force in the revitalization of Nigeria's economy. Representing the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, kindly give a very, very warm welcome to His Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, as he makes his way to the podium. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Please sit. Thank you. Your Excellencies, governors and deputy governors present, especially Governor of Cross River State, Professor Ben Ayadi, distinguished and honorable members of the National Assembly, honorable ministers, honorable commissioners, our partners from the AFDB, the Islamic Development Bank, and the International Fund for Agriculture, team members and partners of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me bring you the very warm greetings of President Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who would have liked to be here himself, but for a previously agreed engagement outside the country. It is my singular honor and pleasure to join you at this momentous event, the launch of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones, the SAPZ program. It always seems completely intuitive that a nation such as ours, with large tracts of arable land and relatively cheap labor, should be able to feed itself, process food, and produce for domestic use and export, creating also in the process millions of good-paying jobs. But that's clearly not the case. What we have today, aside from a few large commercial farms, are mainly aggregations of subsistence farmers who do the best they can without the support of a clear and dedicated plan for industrialization of agriculture. The deliberate development of value chains in the crops that they grow and a pathway to net exportation of their produce. The result is suboptimal agriculture and food production outcomes, food insecurity, fewer good-paying jobs in agriculture, and of late, food inflation and food insecurity. For food inflation and insecurity, we have, of course, now, that has now, of course, now been worsened by the global value chain disruptions caused by the war in Ukraine and drought and flooding caused by climate change. So the well-thought-out answer to our predicament, seems to me, is the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone program, the SAPZ program. The program was recently approved by the Federal Executive Council. It is a major cross-cutting value chain investment effort driven by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in alignment with the National Agricultural Technology and Innovation Policy of the federal government to incentivize agro-industrialization for private sector development. So specifically, the SAPZ program, or SAPZ program, is designed to develop multiple clusters of agricultural transformation centers, or ATCs, and agro-industrial hubs, AIHs, within major clusters of high agricultural production, where functional infrastructure like roads, power, water, communication, etc., are provided to attract private investment into modern agro-processing and value addition to locally produced crops, livestock, and related agribusiness activities. So where a zone, for example, has an advantage in rice production, for example, the well-resourced SAPZ will be located there to bring together agricultural producers, processors, aggregators, and distributors to operate in the production, processing, and industrialization of rice. The SAPZ program is a 5-year program, as we've heard, being implemented by the federal government of Nigeria in partnership with the African Development Bank, the AFDB, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, the Islamic Development Bank, state governments and private investors. And it is happening in 7 participating states: Kano, Imo, Kaduna, Cross River, Kwara, Oyo, and Ogun, and the Federal Capital Territory. And is expected to achieve the following. 1, import substitution, which will reduce our current food import bill. 2, it will boost revenues from agricultural exports. 3, it will create wealth for rural farming communities. 4, it will create new sustainable jobs, especially for women and young people. And 5, it will stem rural-urban migration. 6, it will boost rural livelihoods and revive stranded public and private sector funded assets. And 7, it will decisively improve food security. 8, it will vastly improve the business environment for agro-industrial processors, as it will improve their productivity, and it will enable value addition for inclusive, adaptive, and economic growth. The program is now a critical component of our agricultural strategy, which is to accelerate the industrialization of our agricultural sector with the objective of being ahead of our constraints in providing food, nutrition, and wealth for the largest population on the continent. The first phase, as we've heard, is in 8 locations, the 8 states. And in the next phase, we'll bring on board another 18 states. The SAPZs also stand to benefit from 2 salutary developments. The first is technology and innovation. And there has been an incredible upsurge, as you probably have noticed, in the number of agri-tech startups in Nigeria, all along the entire agricultural value chain. Some of those innovations have vastly improved the quality of inputs. Some use innovation to improve yields, some to exponentially increase investments in agribusiness by various crowdfunding techniques. The National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, is also set to deploy innovative technology and digital skills to support the implementation of the SAPZs. The other is the great opportunity that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement opens up for Nigeria to be the breadbasket and the agribusiness hub for all of our region. This convergence of resource and opportunity is certainly auspicious for the great impact that we look forward to from the SAPZs. The operation of the SAPZs will also leverage on other federal and state government programs, including the National Livestock Transformation Plan, 2019 to 2028, and the Nigeria Industrial Revolution Plan. The agricultural sector was pivotal in pulling our economy out of recession and is the single largest employer of labor. So we must incentivize agriculture through greater investments and an enabling environment for private sector participation and to advance our national agro-industrialization drive. Before I conclude, I must say that the federal government of Nigeria is profoundly proud of the strategic relationship with the African Development Bank, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, and the Islamic Development Bank over the years in building our long-term national prosperity for our country, especially through agriculture. And we thank them for their steadfast support through the years. So today we are at a profoundly important moment in our agricultural odyssey. If the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones program delivers on its would in less than a decade deal a fatal blow to food insecurity, we'll create millions of good-paying jobs, and we will create an agro-industrial opportunity such as has never been seen on this continent at least. And we'll radically improve export earnings from agriculture, which is why, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great hope for the future and in anticipation of great success that I now officially launch the establishment of the agro-industrial processing zones in Nigeria. Thank you very much. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you, Excellency, for your remarks. And if I could please ask you to remain to help us unveil the SAPZ commemorative stamp, if it's not too much trouble. Victor, can you please join me? And also, if I could invite the Postmaster General of Nigeria and CEO of NIPOST, Mr. Sunday Adeyemi Adepojo, and also the CEO of Foundation for Leadership and Ethical Evolution, Mr. Mohammed Adebola, who designed the commemorative stamp, to please join us for the unveiling. And also the Minister of State for the FCT, Hajia Ramotu. It messed up. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. If we could just return to our seats, please. As you know, take 5 more minutes of his time to introduce His Excellency and other distinguished guests to the future of agriculture in Nigeria. Would like to invite 2 young people to come up here, or 3. Okay, go on, Victor.
Thank you very much, Kadaria. As we round up the photographs, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, if you could kindly be seated. Could you kindly be seated, please? Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Vice President Oshibajo, for providing us with just 5 extra minutes of your time as we bring this formal launch to a close. Your Excellency, we would like to quickly introduce you to 5 young Nigerians, dynamic, creative youth who represent not just the present, but the future of agriculture and agro-processing in Nigeria. Very quickly, I'd like to invite to the podium right here with me, Ms. Adunoye Oluyemi, Sheun Ogidon, Amina Yaya, Adiola Samuel, Leah Samuel, and Isuzua Zacchaeus. You have 5-6 minutes, 1 minute each, to talk about the transformational experience that you're all experiencing within the agro-industrial space.
Distinguished guests, Your Excellencies, standing on the existing protocol, I greet you all. My name is Adoye Oluyemi Victory, and I studied crop production and protection from the greatest institution in Nigeria, and even Africa, if I can say so myself, the Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife. And just like most Nigerian youths born without a silver spoon, I was bothered and burdened as to what my future would look like upon graduation. Thankfully, through IITA's program that focuses on youth in agribusiness, I have been exposed to numerous agricultural technologies that is capable of making an agripreneur business very interesting and beautiful. I am so proud to be called an agripreneur today, and much more. Thank you. And much more, I support other young people to earn a living in agriculture. Well, we know that the millions in agriculture is not for the faint-hearted. It's for the strong, the brave, the courageous, the bold, the resilient, and the risk-takers. Today, some of our agripreneurs will be sharing their stories with you, and we sincerely hope that as you listen to them, you see our continuous gratitude to you all here for your support and continuous partnerships in seeing to it that the hope of the Nigerian youth remains alive. I am particularly delighted today, Your Excellencies, sirs, and distinguished guests, because I know and I'm confident that with the implementation of the SAPZ program, we would have more jobs created, we would have improved livelihood, and assured food security. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amina Ado Yahya, one of the beneficiaries of IITA training from Kano State, Nigeria. My story began at the end of our training, where my colleagues and I decided not to end it there, but rather we came together as a team to form a cooperative society named Innovative Horticultural Hub. Our cooperative society has been registered with Kano State Ministry of Commerce, and with that, we were able to open a corporate bank account. We taxed ourselves with monthly contribution in order to raise capital to start premium tomato production, which we have started at Kura local government this year. So far, we have projected to expand in the nearest future by using screenhouse technology. And I believe, Your Excellency, sir, with this kind of program being launched today, more youths will be inspired to venture into agriculture, into farming as a career. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alabi Samuel Adiola. I am the CEO of Collab Agrotech. In February 2021, I came across the IIT-enabled health training funded by the AFDB, and I was exposed to business opportunities in aquaculture and poultry production value chains. Immediately after the training, I started out with just 200 birds, Your Excellency, sir. And right now, I'm proud to tell you that I have over 1,000 birds in my facilities, and I also employ 3 other Nigerian youths like myself in the business. It is my ambition to expand my business and be the best poultry farmer in Nigeria. Mr. Vice President, sir, with the launch of the SAPZ today, I am confident that my desires and that of several other Nigerians can actually be achieved. Thank you very much, sir.
Standing on the existing protocol, my name is Leah Samuel. I'm from Adamawa State. I came in contact with IITA in 2021, and I was trained on the different opportunities in catfish production by Enable TAT, funded by African Development Bank. And after the training, I was privileged to start a fish processing business. And over the time, I've been able to generate a monthly income of about 100 to 20,000. Your Excellency, sir, with your support here today, and with the launching of this project, the SPAZ, I'm very sure that I'll be able to explore more and export my products outside Nigeria. And not only that, we are also sure that the future of Nigerian youth is secured. Thank you very much.
Standing on the existing protocol, my name is Ogidon Oluwaseun. I'm the CEO of F-Step Cassava Enterprise. I started my business in 2016 with just 2 hectares of farm. And in 2018, I was funded. I increased the production to 15 hectares of cassava farm. Now, as I'm talking, with the profit I made, I've increased the production to 30 hectares of cassava and 15 hectares of maize. And which I've been able to employ other 11 youth, and I'm paying them well. I believe I've reduced unemployment rate in that axis. Now, I have a bigger dream. Working across cassava value chain, my plan is to go into processing. And I believe I will achieve that very soon. If Sotri, as a woman, can go far in agro-processing, I believe I can do better. Thank you very much.
Standing on the already established protocol, my name is Zacchaeus Iswabagi from Kaduna State, but I prefer to call myself an advocate for youth in agriculture. Over the years, IITA have invested so much in the potentials and abilities of young people to be the drivers and catalysts that will revolutionize the agribusiness landscape in Nigeria. And that little seed has grown to the few testimonies you've heard today. My earnest belief is that very soon we will start seeing millionaires and billionaires in the ag business space. Over the years, IITA have collaborated with partners like IFAD, the African Development Bank, the MasterCard Foundation, and various developmental partners in order to scoop out thousands of youth that are unemployed. And today we stand to say we are bold businessmen and women in the ag space. I believe with the launch of the SAPZ project, it gives another opportunity for young men like myself to get decent jobs, to get good livelihoods, and for us to experience the massive exodus of youth from the shame of unemployment and poverty in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
I am sure you agree that the future of Nigeria lies in the hands of young people. And if we're to do anything successfully in agriculture, then we have to work with young people. So it's really nice to see these 6 people represent what is possible. Another round of applause for them, please.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, indeed, all good things have to come to an end, and we've had a very accelerated program, and I think we've made very, very good use of the 2 hours that His Excellency, the Vice President, has kindly made available to us today, as well as the governors and ministers present. It gives us pleasure, therefore, to formally begin to wrap up our proceedings at this point, but we'd like to thank Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the Honorable Minister of Finance, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, the Honorable Minister of Industries and Trade and Development, the Honorable Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Minister of Water Resources, the Honorable Minister of Communication, and the Honorable Minister of State for the FCT, Your Excellencies, Executive Governors, Honorable Commissioners, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, members of the Diplomatic Corps, and representatives of the funding SAPZ organizations, SAPZ partners and investors, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we thank you most wholeheartedly for making this event the success that it has been. Tomorrow, very robust technical sessions continue here in Abuja, and we invite you to participate in what indeed will be a game-changing exercise. I hand over at this point to my dear colleague and friend, Kadari Ahmed, to close.
Can I please ask all of you to stand up for the national anthem? Can I please ask everybody to remain standing while His Excellency makes his way out of this building? And, yes.
Africa, a continent of unmatched beauty and wealth. A consumer market of 1.2 billion people, 65% of the world's arable land, and an agribusiness sector expected to reach $1 trillion by 2030. If this vast potential is not fully tapped, Africa's food import bill will hit an unsustainable $100 billion by 2025. In Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, agricultural development trails behind population growth, rapid urbanization, and shifting consumer tastes. As a result, Nigeria heavily depends on imported food commodities, including wheat, vegetable oils, sugar, fish, and dairy products, all of which can be produced locally. While crude oil exports contribute nearly 80% of Nigeria's total export revenues, agriculture contributes less than 2%. If Africa is to revitalize and reinvigorate its agricultural sector, Nigeria must lead the way by raising its food production, eliminating the import of commodities it has the capacity to produce on its own, protect its foreign exchange earnings, create jobs, generate revenues, and build a healthier nation. It's Nigeria's time.
We are strongly supporting Nigeria. This will further help Nigeria diversify its economy and, of course, boost jobs.
The special agro-industrial processing zones will support inclusive and sustainable agro-industrial development and promote select value chains to unlock the competitiveness of the agriculture sector in Nigeria. The program complements existing or completed projects financed by the bank, including power, transport, water, and agriculture sectors. All 36 states in Nigeria and the Federal Capital Territory are eligible to participate in the SAPZ program. The Federal Capital Territory, Kaduna, Kano, Kwara, Imo, Cross River, Ogun, and Oyo will participate in Phase 1 of the SAPZs, funded by the African Development Bank, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, and the Islamic Development Bank.
The people of Boki are mainly farmers, and our product mainly is yams and other crops that we have seen. So we value it so much.
If this particular type of project is done in that area, it will be well developed because investors, Kwara State government is already putting things in place that will encourage investors to come in. so that when they were there, the road that is a problem will be fixed.
Together with its partners, the African Development Bank is promoting increased productivity, value addition, market access, and private sector investment in select agricultural value chain commodities.
The potential is to really bring everything that investors need to one place. We go to a place that has high potential, where we're working with farmers to increase their production, make sure they have the right inputs.
Phase 1 of the special agro-industrial processing zones will create 1.5 million jobs, create secondary cities, and trigger new, vibrant, and dynamic agricultural green revolution. With enabling public-private partnership policies and strict quality control, Nigeria's SAPZs are expected to create exponential agro-processing growth and an unprecedented market supply of food products for local and global markets. With strong domestic manufacturing and increased value addition, Nigeria will transform the production and export of processed cocoa beans, cashew nuts, ginger, cotton, cassava, sesame, and several other commodities for which Nigeria has a comparative advantage. Together, we can guarantee Nigeria's food security, transform rural areas, and create jobs for millions of young people. Nigeria has the land, the technology, power, and capacity to lead the way for Africa's green revolution. Together, we are making a difference.